You're watching World News Program. I'm Miriam Zian, and these are the headlines. After a three-day official visit, Pope Leo XIV concludes his historic visit to Algeria, affirming that the visit was a significant event in promoting the values of peace, dialogue, and coexistence throughout the world. In the developments regarding the ceasefire in the Middle East, Iran confirms that it will not allow trade to flow in the Red Sea if the naval blockade persists. Trump says that the war against Iran is very close to its end, and a Pakistani delegation meets in Tehran with Iranian officials as part of mediation efforts. In Lebanon, martyrs and wounded reported and raised by the Zionist occupation on different areas of the country. And Hezbollah says it carried out several attacks against targets deep inside the Zionist entity. Welcome back. Algerian President Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune bid farewell to Pope Leo XIV following his official visit to Algeria. After listening to the national anthems of both Algeria and the Vatican, President Tebboune and Pope Leo reviewed formations of the Algerian armed forces who presented arms in their honor. Afterwards, President Tebboune greeted the delegation accompanying Pope Leo XIV at Houari Boumediene International Airport, while the Pope greeted senior Algerian officials who were present to see him off. And earlier, Algerian President Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune held private talks with His Holiness Pope Leo in the presidential VIP lounge of Algiers International Houari Boumediene Airport. Pope Leo XIV sent a message on Wednesday to Algerian President Abdelmajid Tebboune in which he expressed his deep gratitude to present and the Algerian people, according to a statement from the Algerian presidency. The same source added on Wednesday that Pope Leo XIV also expressed his appreciation for the warm welcome and hospitality he received during his visit to Algeria. Pope Leo XIV said on Wednesday that his official visit to Algeria at President Tebboun's invitation was a valuable opportunity to build bridges and strengthen dialogue, expressing gratitude to Algerian authorities for making it possible. Speaking to journalists on his flight to Cameroon, he added that his visit, especially to Annaba, highlighted the vision of Saint Augustine and promoted unity and mutual respect between peoples of different religions, while again thanking Algeria for its warm support and hospitality.
So in 2 days in Algeria, I think we've really had a wonderful opportunity to, if you will, continue to build bridges, to promote dialogue. I think the visit to the mosque was significant, to say that although we have different beliefs, we have different ways of worshiping, we have different ways of living, we can live together in peace. And so I think that to promote that kind of image is something which the world needs to hear today, and that together we can continue to offer in our witness as we continue on this apostolic voyage.
The official visit of Pope Leo XIV to Algeria at the invitation of President Abdelmajid Tebboune was a significant event that reinforced Algeria's position as a country that respects the values of peace, dialogue, and coexistence in the world. Usama Ayadi has more details.
Once again, Algeria proves itself as a hub for peace, coexistence, and religious harmony, and the historic visit of the Pope Leo is a further image of an Algeria open to the world and attractive for spiritual significance. With its symbolic, cultural, political, and diplomatic dimensions, Pope Leo XIV's visit to the Church of St. Augustine in Hippo Regius in Annaba represents the culmination of a visit that left its mark and affirmed its profound spiritual and philosophical depth, illuminating diverse cultures and peoples. It reconnects glorious present with deep intellectual and spiritual roots that remain powerfully present in the global religious and cultural memory.
It's coming to give us the message of peace and also to encourage us to dialogue, to continue living in peace, to coexist in peace, which is very important. Because for him, as he has said when he was coming from Lebanon, that peace is very important, and he would like to continue this mission of advancing, enhancing peaceful coexistence and dialogue in life, to live together, just like St. Augustine encouraged us to live in the community in harmony with one mind and one heart.
Amidst the tensions, crises, and challenges plaguing the world and burdening various nations, the Pope's visit to Algeria became the focus of attention for the world's peoples who yearn for peace, stability, and the consolidation of the values of coexistence and dialogue. Pope Leo did not hesitate to emphasize that salvation lies in concrete efforts, unified visions, and prioritizing reason and wisdom. Furthermore, the Pope reaffirmed his unwavering rejection of wars and genocide, highlighting Algeria's role in spreading the values of peace, solidarity, coexistence, and the support for just causes. A visit that, as much as it reinforces the image of authentic Algeria imbued with the values of tolerance, coexistence, and intellectual and spiritual richness, which proves wrong all the mouthpieces that once pretended that Algeria is not a cradle of peace, religious dialogue, and freedom of worship, as it is clearly set out in the Algerian constitution.
Pope Leo XIV left Algeria to Cameroon on Wednesday as part of an African tour running until the 23rd of the month. In his second stop, he began a 3-day visit meeting President Paul Biya and officials. On Friday, he will then head to Douala to lead a mass expected to draw large crowds and meet labor representatives. Iran threatened on Wednesday to impose a naval blockade in the Red Sea if the United States continues its blockade of its ports. In a statement broadcast on state TV, Khatam al-Anbiya headquarters commander Ali Abdullah said that ongoing U.S. actions and uncertainty over the safety of Iranian commercial ships and oil tankers could lead to a breach of the ceasefire in place since April 8, adding that Iran's armed forces would block all imports and exports in the Gulf, the Sea of Oman, and the Red Sea. Iran's Marin news agency reported that Tehran plans to use alternative ports instead of those in the south of the country, in a move aimed at bypassing the U.S. blockade of the Strait of Hormuz. Data suggests that Iran has several ports along the Sea of Oman outside the strait, giving it additional options to maintain trade and supply flows. Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian said that Iran is not seeking war, stressing that any attempt by what he called hostile parties to impose their will or force Iran to surrender will fail. In remarks to the press in Tehran on Wednesday, he added that decisions on ending conflicts or threats will be made in a way that protects Iran's security and interests, and called for an end to the use of U.S. bases in the region to destabilize Iran's relations with its neighbors.
The Islamic Republic of Iran does not seek war or instability in the region. Rather, it has always emphasized its commitment to the language of dialogue and constructive engagement with various countries of the world. Nevertheless, any attempt to coerce the country into submission or impose the will of the enemy will be met with failure. The Iranian people will never accept such an approach and will not surrender to bullies.
US President Donald Trump said the war against Iran is very close to ending. In a Fox News interview set to air Wednesday, he discussed US strikes and ongoing talks, claiming Iran would have never obtained a nuclear weapon without the attacks. He added that rebuilding would take 20 years and that Iran is willing to make a deal.
I'm very happy, and it's going to come dropping down very big as soon as it's over, and I think it can be over very soon. So if they're smart, it will end soon.
U.S. President J.D. Vance said Tuesday that the lack of trust between Washington and Tehran cannot be overcome overnight. Speaking at an event organized by Turning Point USA, he stressed that deep mistrust exists between Iran and the U.S. and will take time to resolve.
The United States had never had meetings at that level with the Iranian government in 49 years. Like it's a meeting that had never before happened, not Democrat, not Republican. We had never had a meeting like that where you have, the person who's effectively running the country in Iran sitting across from the Vice President of the United States. That had never happened. And what look, honestly, after 49 years, there's a lot of course, mistrust between Iran and the United States of America. You're not going to solve that problem overnight. But yeah, I think the people we're sitting across from wanted to make a deal.
Also, U.S. President or Vice President J.D. Vance also said that Iranian negotiators had wanted to reach a deal, adding that he's fully satisfied with the current situation.
What's interesting about this is that we have this ceasefire that's in place. I think it's 6 or 7 days old. Right now, the ceasefire is holding. And what you're seeing is what the president wants to make, he doesn't want to make like a small deal. He wants to make the grand bargain. And what he's basically offering to Iran is very simple, and frankly, it's something that no president has had the ability to offer. He said that if you're willing to act like a normal country, we are willing to treat you economically like a normal country.
A senior U.S. official told AFP on Wednesday that the United States has not formally agreed to extend the ceasefire with Iran following media reports claiming the Trump administration had in principle approved an extension. The official, speaking anonymously, said no formal agreement exists, but confirmed that ongoing talks between the US and Iran are continuing to reach a deal. Pakistan's Army Chief Field Marshal Asim Munir met Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi in Tehran to help prevent renewed conflict between Iran and the US amid ongoing regional diplomatic efforts. US President Donald Trump said the war with Iran could end soon, while Israel's security cabinet was set to discuss a possible Lebanon ceasefire linked to its wider conflict with Hezbollah. Talks between US and Iranian officials may resume in Pakistan after earlier negotiations failed, with reports indicating Israel expects the current Iran-related ceasefire to be extended. Pakistani Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif began a four-day diplomatic tour on Wednesday, including visits to Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Turkey, ahead of a possible second round of US-Iran peace talks. The Foreign Ministry said the visits to Saudi Arabia and Qatar are bilateral, while Sharif will attend the Antalya Diplomacy Forum in Turkey and hold meetings with Recep Tayyip Erdogan and other leaders on the sidelines. And China said that the urgent priority is to avoid a resumption of war and maintain the fragile ceasefire momentum between Washington and Tehran. In a regular press briefing on Wednesday, the Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson said Beijing welcomes the ceasefire and is working to encourage a lasting agreement that prevents renewed conflict, adding that China is doing everything it can to restore normal navigation through the Strait of Hormuz and promote regional peace.
China urges all parties to abide by the ceasefire arrangement, focus on the general direction of dialogue and negotiations, and take concrete actions to promote the easing of the regional situation and restore normal passage through the strait at the earliest possible time.
US President Donald Trump said he asked Chinese President Xi Jinping not to supply Iran with weapons, and that Xi told him China is not doing so. In a Fox Business interview aired Wednesday, Trump said he had heard claims that China was providing arms to Iran, adding that he contacted Xi, who reportedly denied in response.
Thank you very much. I had heard that China is giving weapons to, you're seeing it all over the place, to Iran, that China's
Did he
giving
say
weapons.
He's giving them?
Yeah, and I wrote him a letter asking him not to do that, and he wrote me a letter saying that essentially he's not doing that.
The European Council President Antonio Costa warned about the situation in the Strait of Hormuz, saying any disruption to shipping would pose a direct threat to the global economy. Speaking at a press conference in Doha at the end of his visit to Qatar, he said the EU supports international efforts to ensure freedom of navigation and backed ongoing US-Iran dialogue to maintain the ceasefire and reach a lasting political settlement.
The blockage of the Strait of Hormuz is very dangerous for the global economy, and all the world is already suffering the impact of this illegal blockage. It's urgent to ensure the freedom of navigation. We know that Qatar is engaged to support all the talks on this, and as I said, the European countries are joining the efforts led by France and the United Kingdom to ensure a broad coalition to protect and ensure the freedom of navigation in the Strait of Hormuz.
Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said Russia is ready to compensate for energy supply shortages facing China and other countries due to the Middle East conflict. According to Russian news agencies, Lavrov said in a press conference in Beijing that Russia can fully make up for resource gaps for China and other partners. He also confirmed that President Vladimir Putin is expected to visit China in the first half of 2026.
Russia can certainly make up for the shortage in resources that has emerged in China and in other countries that are interested in working with us on an equal and mutually beneficial basis. Russia has said this more than once. The President has addressed this issue as well, including in connection with the plans by European countries, the European Commission, to cut all energy ties with Russia altogether.
And the Director General of the International Atomic Energy Agency, Rafael Grossi, said on Wednesday that deciding the duration of any suspension of uranium enrichment under a potential U.S.-Iran agreement is a political decision, I should say. In remarks to the media, Grossi added that Iran is proficient in uranium enrichment, noting that rebuilding trust is ultimately up to it.
Regarding the issue of the possible moratorium from Iran, this is a political decision more than anything else. Iran masters the process of uranium enrichment. This is clear. So whether they opt for such a course of action as a confidence-building alternative, it is really up to them. It is certainly a possibility, but there are many modalities to do that, and we will have to see how this is done.
13 Lebanese people were killed and others injured on Wednesday in a series of Israeli airstrikes on several areas across Lebanon. The Lebanese National News Agency reported that Israeli warplanes carried out dawn raids on the town of Ansariya, killing 5 people and injuring 11, and another strike near the Kadmos area, close to the city of Tyre, killed 4 people and wounded 3. Lebanese media also said a separate strike hit a house in the town of Jbah, killing a civilian, his house, and their 2 children. The Lebanese Ministry of Health said the death toll from Israeli attacks on the country since March 2 has risen to 2,167 killed and 7,061 injured. The ministry's Emergency Operations Center reported that since Wednesday morning alone, 43 civilians have been killed and 140 others wounded due to ongoing Israeli strikes. It added that the overall toll includes 172 children, 260 women, and 91 health sector workers. And the Hezbollah said it launched 19 rocket attacks on 12 Israeli settlements in northern occupied Palestine and targeted Israeli troop gatherings in southern Lebanon. It also said it struck the Matat military base with drones, calling the attacks a response to ceasefire violations and vowing to continue until what it described as ongoing Israeli-American aggression on Lebanon stops. Britain criticized the international community for failing Sudan and called for coordinated global efforts to stop arms flowing into Khartoum. Foreign Secretary Yvette Cooper, speaking at the Berlin Conference on Sudan, said the world has let the Sudanese people down and urged pressure on both sides of the conflict to agree to an urgent ceasefire and allow humanitarian aid.
We're here today on the 3rd anniversary of the most horrendous conflict in Sudan. Countries from across the world coming here together in Berlin to discuss the way, frankly, the international community has failed the people of Sudan for too long. We have seen the most appalling atrocities. We have seen rape being used as a weapon of war, almost on an industrial scale. We have seen nearly 20 million people at risk of famine.
And the senior U.S. advisor on African affairs, Massad Boulos, said the United States is not taking sides in Sudan's ongoing war. Speaking to reporters on Wednesday at the Berlin conference, he said Washington is pushing for a humanitarian truce to allow aid to reach civilians and is focusing its efforts on a UN-backed mechanism to end the conflict.
The people of Sudan have suffered enough, and that's why we have been calling for an immediate acceptance of this humanitarian truce. And it's only a truce at the moment. We would like to have it immediately accepted by both sides without any preconditions, so that we can have some time to work on the transition, on the political transition, and then we can, of course, in the meantime, we will be working on a permanent ceasefire. But let's start first with this humanitarian truce.
And finally, the Spanish authorities have referred the case of a secret Huera tunnel used to smuggle cannabis from Morocco to Madrid to the National High Court. The Spanish authorities said an investigating judge at the court has opened a preliminary probe pending the public prosecutor's position on jurisdiction and the next legal steps. The end of our newscast. Thank you for watching.